At the time, it was more so about the combining the finances, but a lot of the lessons that we learned along the way of doing it, uh, we're working together as a family. We are showing our kid how to move financially, and that's going to make him a better functioning adult when he gets out into the world. Hey, family, this is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, this is episode 83. We outside. 83 episodes, 83 weeks of consistency, 83 weeks of getting it done. If you are a new listener, watcher, or subscriber to this podcast, thank you so much for joining us. On this podcast, we talk about faith, family, and finances, among other things. If you are a return listener, thank you so much for coming back. Hopefully, we are adding value to your lives on the way to the M's. Because as always, we are on our way to the M's. Guys, I am just, as I'm getting started talking about what we're going to talk about on this podcast, I just want to stop and just say thank you to the people who have given me the opportunity to come in and speak to their groups, to their audiences. That is why we're doing this podcast. We're doing the podcast to get the message out of financial freedom, of how to do it, different tips, different tricks on how to get it done. And people are recognizing what we're doing here and giving them the different tools that they're going to need to actually get it done and to start. So a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak to my job. I work for a corporation, and they had me come in to speak to a group of, it's called Rise 2. So it is basically a diversity and inclusion group. And we talked about financial freedom. We talked about why finances are important in trying to build wealth. And that opportunity for me was huge. So shout out to the Rise 2 group that had me come in, the leaders of that group that had me come in. It was awesome. I got a lot of good feedback, obviously some things that I need to work on, but at the end of the day, the message got out and people's eyes got opened up to what's possible for them. And the overarching message that I received back is that we were never taught how to budget. We were never taught about investing. Contrary to what people may believe that are in corporate, everybody doesn't know about a 401k. Everybody doesn't know about the match or investing or even budgeting for that matter. And that's exactly why we're doing this podcast, because I believe that the foundation to building wealth is to set up a budget, to show yourself and your family where your money's going, and then making sure that that money gets distributed where it needs to go. First, by lowering your expenses and then investing. So what I got from doing the talk was that people were never taught different things of that nature. So what I want to talk about today is kind of going back to the family dynamic, because that's exactly why people were never taught, because it wasn't talked about in their home. And it's not necessarily the fault of the parents, because I believe that a lot of parents are doing what they were taught or not taught. So a lot of things that we're learning in our houses are getting passed down from generation to generation to generation. So now I believe that once you get good at something, as far as budgeting, investing, all those things that come along with wealth building, it is your responsibility to teach the people, at least in your home. If you don't want to go out and tell and spread the word about, financial literacy and things of that nature in your community, sure, that's fine. But at least talk about it in your home. Or if you're not good at it, at least talk to your kids about why you're not good at it, or if you're not good at it, and try to improve. Take the steps necessary to improve, because if we're not doing it, we're just setting our families back further and further and further. And that is a sobering revelation. If you think about it, if you don't get good and you don't show the other people coming behind you, then 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be good either. We talk about fear. We talk about the enemy on this podcast, and the enemy would like nothing more than to stop you from being successful in any realm of life. When I say that, I mean, what people look to other people who are successful at something, whatever it is. If you are mediocre or you're not successful at things, 9 times out of 10, people are not going to be looking to you for guidance, right? So if that's the case, then as far as financially, as far as financial soundness goes, if we get good at it in our house and then we show our kids, then it's going to trickle down, and then it's going to trickle down to their kids and then their kids. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying. But the enemy would love nothing more than to keep us down financially, keep us in despair, keep us broke. But it's our job to find a way to get better, just get incrementally better. What I mean by that is, if you're not good at finances and you know that you need to get better, and you maybe know that you're overspending, if you're writing down your income and then writing down your expenses, you'll see exactly where the gaps are of where you could where there are some areas of opportunity for you to get better in your finances. If you're overspending at restaurants, if you're overspending in your subscriptions, things of that nature, then you can stop. You do have control over your situation. But going back to the enemy, he would love nothing more than to keep us down. Also, fear is a big driver in why we are where we are as a family, as a people. Because one of the most uncomfortable conversations to have, especially if you're not good at it, is about finances, and admitting that you're not good at finances. When, based on your habits, people already know if you're good or not. So if we're fearful about having conversations, and we're fearful, if we're fearful about having conversations, then the likelihood of us talking about it in our household is slim to none. And as we're not talking about it in our households, then it's just constantly setting us back. One of the greatest things, I believe, that I got over was having the conversation regarding combining our finances, my wife and I. That is the number one driver, I believe, in getting us to where we are today. And if you're new to this podcast, we don't have any debt, no car payments, no mortgage payment, no credit card debt, student loans. They're all gone, right? But I believe that they're all gone because we decided what we wanted for our family, and then we set up a plan, and then we executed. And it all started with combining our finances and budgeting, which was new to us together, because our families never talked about finances. My wife and I, our families never talked about finances. The majority of the conversations surrounding our families may have been you asking for something and your parents saying yes or no. That was the extent of you knowing about finances in your home. But many of us are just figuring it out. So on this platform, we're taking away the fear of budgeting. We're taking away the fear of not knowing, because we're giving you practical steps on how to get to the M's and keeping them and investing them, and then making that money make you more money. So if we get the family dynamic together, and we start there, then our children are going to grow up better, financially prepared to attack the world. And that's what this episode is about today. And it all stemmed from the conversation that I had from the people at work, because I got a lot of emails, I got a lot of text messages basically saying, like, yo, I was never taught either. And because of that, we're set back. So now we're trying to get over that. And we're going to talk about today how. So I mentioned it before that one of the greatest things that my wife and I did was combining our finances. And it made the conversation around money in our house happen more often, because when you combine your finances with your spouse, it forces you to talk about money, because you guys are on one accord about what you're doing with your money, and then you're executing the plan. And then if something comes up that you didn't necessarily budget for, whatever the case may be, then you know that you have to talk about it. And then your kids can be privy to those conversations because they're around and you're talking about it, things of that nature. So today, if you are not combining finances with your spouse, this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about combining finances with our spouse, because this is going to be the number one way to force you to talk about finances, so your kids will not be in the dark about finances. Also, what it's going to do, it's going to it's when you don't combine your finances with your spouse, it's kind of like you're together, but you're working in a silo. You're working in this little cluster by yourself. But anybody who works on a team knows that you can go so much further faster together. So you're married to this person, you're with this person together in a home, and you don't have your monies together. When we first got married, it made sense to just keep everything separate because it was easy. We didn't necessarily have to have conversations around money, because my money was my money, her money was her money, and in our opinions, all was well. But what I'll tell you is, I knew something was wrong because we had a kid together. We were married, we were together, our goals were aligned, but the last missing piece to get us where we needed to go was combining our monies together. So if you are new to this podcast, I talk about it before that one of the toughest conversations I had with my wife was to combine our finances. And I knew something was wrong when we weren't, but I was scared. Again, goes back to the fear of having the conversation of combining the finances. So long story short, my wife, I talked to her, I had the tough conversation, said, hey babe, I think we need to get our monies together. And she said, okay, let me think about it. She came back, said, okay, let's lock in, give me a couple months to clean some things up, and then we're going to lock in. As soon as we did that, we were off to the races. So that's why it's so important. And then the conversations around money started happening around our house. So when we were starting to look to pay our house off, my son got involved. We're driving along in the car. He's asking me, hey dad, where are we in paying off the house? We set up a thermometer in our laundry room, and every time we did a little mile marker, we colored the thermometer in, because we're making progress towards our goal. So we're going to talk today about 3 steps on how to start combining your finances, because it's more important than you think. And if you're not combining your finances, that's no problem. But I believe that if you're married, or no, if you're married, then you should combine your finances, because you're with this person for a reason. So if you're not combining your finances, you guys are kind of working separately in two different directions. So step number one in combining your finances, besides having the conversation that, hey, this is what we need to do, and these are the reasons why. Step number one to work towards combining your finances is identifying a common goal. My wife and I had a common goal for our family to thrive financially. My wife and I had a common goal to reduce our expenses. My wife and I had a common goal to send our child to school for free, to college. So it just made sense for us to combine our monies together, but we had to have the tough conversations. But it made the conversation easier once we identified common goals that we already had. And we already knew that we had these common goals because we talked about them before. So that's a huge piece to combining the finances, and very, very important for you and your household and your kid and the kids coming behind them. Number two, building trust. Building trust is huge. A lot of people do not want to combine finances with the other spouse because the other spouse spends money like crazy. They don't have control. A lot of times that happens because, again, they were never taught, and they're making more money than their parents probably have ever made, or they are making good money and they couldn't afford the things that they wanted when they were younger. So they say to themselves, I'm making good money. I'm going to spend whatever I want, while the other spouse, who is maybe a little bit better with money, is watching them spend money like crazy. And then a fear comes up for the other spouse saying, hey, I'm not combining my finances with this person because I don't want them to drag me down too. So if you're the spouse that is not good with money and you know that you need to get better, or there's some areas of opportunity, then you have to build trust with the other spouse. And it's important, if you want your family to go somewhere, which I believe you do, as a spouse who's not good with money, you got to build that trust with the other spouse, meaning that maybe you don't spend as much money if your thing is going to the mall, or your thing is online shopping, or your thing is buying toys, cars, things of that nature. Then slow down. It's okay. Not saying that you can't have all those things now, but if those things are putting you in debt, or those things are dragging your family down from progressing, investing, and things of that nature, then it would make sense for you to go ahead and slow down. Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Are you tired of using your credit cards as an emergency fund? Are you still paying for that vacation that you took 2 years ago? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, I'm here to help. My name is Che Willis, and I help families living paycheck to paycheck live the life that they want to live through budgeting and investing. And listen, I get it. The word budget can be scary. However, if done the right way, it can yield some sexy results. All we're trying to do is lower your expenses so you'll have more money to invest. So if you have any questions, concerns, or issues with budgeting, please go to wealthisajourney.com and book a call today. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. So the easy step for that would be, if you, let's just say you spend, $1,000 a month at the mall, maybe you cut back and then do 500 or 750. Start small, and then you get incrementally better. And then what you'll realize is, once you're saving that money, that the things that I'm buying don't really matter. Like if you have 3 and 4 cars, you can only drive one. Or if you have a closet full of sneakers, like how many sneakers can you wear in a week? So you'll realize, once you start taking that money and cutting back on buying those things, and then you start, let's just say, investing the money, you'll get greater joy seeing your account grow. I'm only telling you from experience. You'll get more joy from seeing your account grow than seeing your closet grow full of stuff. Because at the end of the day, those things, yeah, you can sell the sneakers. I get that too. But you'll have a lot more assets, and you'll be actually collecting lessons for your family to then glean from, and they'll be in a much better position. So keep that in mind. Like, building that trust is going to be huge. And then as you do that, you start talking to your spouse about it. Like, hey, I made some progress. And they will be then more comfortable with you combining finances. So you then are locked into one common goal. You then show them you're building trust by showing them that your behaviors are different. And now you can actually get to working together with your significant other. Number three is progress. Number three is progress. When you are building the trust with your spouse, you're showing them that the progress that you made, which I talked about on number two. One of the things that was huge for me, and my wife told me years later, that the reason that she was comfortable with me combining finances was because she saw the way I managed my money. Now, it was the opposite effect for me because I saw the way that she managed her money, and it wasn't necessarily as structured, I'll say, as the way I managed my money, but I knew it needed to be done. So she told me, she was like, hey, I trust you with managing money because I see the way you manage your money. There were times where she made more money than me, but at the end of the month, I had more money than her because I wasn't just going to the mall and I wasn't just buying things just because I could. There were certain times where she would come to me and ask me for money at the end of the month. And I'm like, yo, you make more money than I do. Why are you asking me for money? This was before we combined our finances. So I built that trust with her, and she was comfortable enough to combine finances with me. I was comfortable combining finances with her because I trusted that she would do the right thing after we got together, after we agreed on where we wanted to go with our finances. Also, I would constantly show her the progress that we were making. Like, we had an investment property. We still have the investment property. But when we were living at our house before we moved into this house, we agreed that we would take some of the proceeds from the property and then invest it into our mortgage to pay our mortgage down at that old house. Now, she didn't care at the time, but I would always every month tell her, hey, look at our principal payment now, because our principal payment was going down. What did that mean? It meant our interest payment was going down as well. So that meant that we were spending less money in interest because we were allocating those funds back into our mortgage to lower our payment amount over time. And then what that did was, when we sold that house, although years prior we were upside down because we bought that house at the top of the market when the housing bubble bursted. And by the time that we sold that house, we were even. But I believe if we weren't putting that money into our mortgage from the rental property, then we would have been upside down in the house. But we ended up breaking even when we sold that house to buy this one. So the track record with me made her comfortable because of the decisions, because of the choices that I was making, to then combine the finances with me. At the time, it was more so about the combining the finances, but a lot of the lessons that we learned along the way of doing it, we're working together as a family. We are showing our kid how to move financially. And that's going to make him a better functioning adult when he gets out into the world. So I'm not saying that you have to just all of a sudden just be this great person around finances. That's why on this podcast, we talk about taking steps, taking small steps, and just getting incrementally better. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Lawrence Taylor, Troy Aikman, like all these people didn't just appear to be these people. They practiced at it and they got incrementally better. And it was a progression. It didn't happen overnight. So if you are making steps towards building wealth, if you're making steps towards being better financially, then understand it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. But what I promise you is that if you're doing these 3 steps, along with all the other things that we talk about on this podcast, you will be good financially, but you have to keep working at it. And what we're doing on this podcast is we're giving you the little nuggets, the little tools, the little tricks that I've learned along the way, that my guests have learned along the way, on how to be better at whatever you're doing. So if you do these 3 things, and I'm going to go over them again. Number 1 is identify the common goals. Number 2 is building trust with your spouse. And number 3 is, once you build the trust, show the progress that you made, so then you can build your financial future together with your spouse. And then what that's going to do is going to show your kids, or your kid, or your nieces and nephews, how to be better financially. Because once you start doing something, people are going to start gravitating to you and asking you how exactly you did it. And because you're building reps, you have a lot of reps doing it, doing the thing that's making you better financially, then you're going to be able to better explain it to them. And then they're going to get good at it. And then they're going to be able to show other people. And then they're going to get good at it. And hopefully you see that it's going to be a whole trickle down effect. And this is exactly how we're going to break generational patterns. That's what we're doing. We are breaking generational patterns. I believe that there's really no such thing as a generational curse. People have choices on the things that they do or do not do, and they act on those choices. So if you want to be better financially, you have to make better financial choices. But what you don't see is the people that are watching you making those bad financial choices. And if they're living in your house, the likelihood of them making the same bad financial choices is very high. So then they're going to continue to repeat the patterns that you may be seeing. And then your parents may be seeing, and then their parents may be seeing. So it has to stop you. That's the episode for today. So hopefully this has helped somebody. We are getting better and better every week if we continue to practice. So my only ask of you is that you get better every day, every week, by the decisions and choices that you make. Wealth is a journey. We will see you next week.